What's going on, everybody? Matt Bruning here with Campus to Canton. I'm going to be running through a rookie mock 1.0. It is that time of year. The NFL playoffs are in full swing. We're heading toward our rookie drafts, trying to dive deep into all these players. We did a lot of these last year, these rookie mocks. We did some Debbie and Campus to Canton ones, and they're back. We're going to try and run from now, heading past Super Wild Card Weekend through at least up until NFL draft weekend. So we got a ton of stuff planned for you guys. Here's going to be our rookie mock 1.0. All right, so for these picks, I'm going to run through kind of my strategy and what I would do at each spot, and then we'll give a recap of the rounds. And I'm going to give you a little look at our graphs that we have here at Campus to Canton as well to kind of show you how we value some of these players. Starting with the number one overall pick, I do think this is going to be an interesting spot in most rookie drafts. This is a super flex draft for you guys, by the way, going to completely super flex here. But I have to take Bijan Robinson. He, for me, is the number one pick in this draft. I mean, look at that. These are 2022 stats you've got on the screen here for you. 104 missed forced tackles, number one in the nation, 1,500 rushing yards, incredible dominator rating, reception market share. Like, Bijan was able to do it all this year for a Texas offense, and he's already got the size. He's going to be compared to the likes of Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. And I do think by the time he ends up in the NFL draft, I do expect him to be a first-round pick, that he's going to probably be talked about as RB2 or 3. And I know people are going to say that's crazy, but we were talking about Breece Hall, being up there as RB5 after he entered into the NFL during his rookie season. Bijan's better, and I love Breece Hall, but Bijan is going to be better. He's likely going to be right up there with the likes of Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor once he enters the NFL draft. Very curious to see where he lands, and definitely check out our mock. We dropped a mock on campustocanton.com. I will drop the link in the description for you guys to check it out. We had him actually going to the Philadelphia Eagles. They're losing Miles Sanders. Maybe they're looking for someone to help out Jalen Hurts. Going to be interesting. But let's move it on. Pick 102. We're going into super flex. If I'm sitting at the 102 spot, I probably wanted Bijan to fall. You kind of hope that guy at one goes quarterback. But I'm assuming this pick is probably because I have a bad team. And at this point, nobody holds value in these super flex leagues like the quarterback does. I mean, let's just be honest. You can still, even though we don't even know what's going to happen with Zach Wilson right now, he may not be a starter next year. We still believe that he has a chance to be possibly a backup somewhere. Maybe he gets us traded and has another starting job. His value, while not as much as it was when he first got drafted, is still fairly high. So I am taking the quarterback with a high ceiling, and that's CJ Stroud. Now, look, if you pay attention to the Campus to Canton network here, you know I've not always been the biggest fan of CJ Stroud. I've said before, I think he needs to be, extremely well protected and have good weapons around him. But what I will say, for anybody who watched that playoff game on New Year's Eve against Georgia, he ran, finally. And it's something we talked a lot about with Justin Fields. It's part of the Ryan Day offense. He does not want his quarterbacks to run. He just doesn't. And that's part of what he sells, his offensive system. We're going to teach you to be a quarterback. We don't want you to get hurt by running the ball. CJ Stroud is at least in my opinion, a better athlete and has a much better arm than a Dak Prescott, which is what I think he can be at the NFL level if landing in the right spot. A lot of these people are talking about him going to Indy. That would be the perfect spot. Good offensive line, good weapons around him. Regardless of where he goes, he's likely a top 5 pick. I want to bet on that talent because if he is put somewhere, granted, maybe let's just say he goes to Houston Texans. Yeah, they're not going to be good right now. That doesn't mean that they won't be in the future. Offenses change, offensive lines, weapons change. We've seen teams get built up. I think CJ Stroud's got a fairly safe floor, and so that's why I would take him over Bryce Young, who I have at 3. That's why I would take if CJ and Bijan go 1 and 2. Now, I can argue Bryce being the top pick out of the draft. He is, if I'm being honest, my QB1 in my rankings right now. I know he's small. He's listed at 5'10". The rumors are he's more like 5'8", 5'9". He's Kyler Murray. He's light too. He's like 190 on a good day. The thing with Bryce is we've seen him play in the SEC. He's gotten beaten up by Georgia, by these defenders that have gone into the NFL and been some of the best in the NFL, and he's not dealt with any injury. He missed a game this year, guys. That's it. because of an injury, came back, and while he still struggled a little bit, he was still incredibly good, fantastic. He is, they call him the magician on Saturdays for a reason. When he is flushed out of the pocket, he just finds ways to make plays. And I do think he'll do the same thing at the NFL level. Sometimes I feel like he wants the play to break down to make a play, but at the end of the day, he still makes them. And that's all that matters. He can make all three level throws. He can hit all three different levels. Like he's a really, really good quarterback. He's the one I want to see go to Houston because I do think with a struggling offensive line and offensive pieces around him, he'll still thrive in that offense, but he would be it. These next couple picks, I'm really torn on. If I'm sitting there at 1-4 and I'm like, okay, well, Bryce and CJ are gone. They're the two top quarterbacks for me. Bijan's gone. Probably, again, looking at this as if I'm at the 104, probably not a good team. I'm looking at best player available. Now, we're assuming Anthony Richardson and Will Levis probably get first-round draft capital. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama, has that shot as well. But I'm going with my number one wide receiver here. And you're going to look at these stats. You're going to say, man, that's not good. But, guys, he was injured all season long. And the one thing we all seem to forget is in his sophomore season, he outproduced Chris Olave, a senior, and Garrett Wilson, a junior. Two players that were drafted last year in the first round, both top 10 picks, both or maybe 11. I think Olave technically went 11, so we'll say top 15 picks. But on top of that, it's the first duo to be drafted in the first year that both went over 1,000 yards in the NFL. And JSN was better than both of them as a junior, with both of them on the field. Now, I know. Rose Bowl game. JSN was playing against, quote unquote, a running back at the defensive back and put up a lot of yards. Yeah, he did. But not all of them were against Micah Bernard, who is a running back that was having to play defensive back due to injuries. Go back and look at his game logs because he also had multiple very good games against other good defenses with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave on the field. He is a good player. Sure, as you can see there, we'll pull it back up. 85% in the slot. He's probably a slot wide receiver at the NFL level. But who cares? He is that good. He is so incredibly good at creating separation. And if you can create that separation, it doesn't matter where you're playing, the quarterback will get you the ball. I think Jason's being discounted in a major way because of those injuries. And I think he's going to be really good. So that moves me to the 105. The argument for Anthony Richardson has been here for these two picks, but we'll get to that. I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs here. Really good running back. He gets compared a lot to Alvin Kamara. I don't think he's Alvin Kamara. Felix Sharp, one of the co-founders here at Campus Canton, compares him to put us on that Aaron Jones type spectrum. I think that's probably a better comp for him. I think he's going to be really good. Likely gets first-round draft capital. He also had a couple games where he was injured and just not used right at Alabama, if we're being honest. He just wasn't. But if you go look at what he was done at Georgia Tech, you can see why people are so excited for him. I think whoever drafts him is going to have a plan in mind to use him as a receiving back and also as a running back. So I'm all in on Jahmyr Gibbs here. Now, again, I don't have any issue if you want to take Anthony Richardson or Will Levis over both of these guys. As I said earlier, quarterbacks really do seem to maintain their value for the most part longer than any other position. But for me, there's just something about having the best wide receiver or another running back because I do think you're taking bets on Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, but I'm taking Anthony Richardson next here at 106. And look, we've talked about it. He is an athletic specimen. He has the most upside in this draft. No doubt about it. No doubt. Has the most upside, but he's got to get it all together. You look at the bottom of that screen there, 53% completion. Now, he was challenging down the field a ton, 11.7 ADOT, 13th in all of college football. That is really good. Not a lot of big-time throws or turnover-worthy throws. Still, that's pretty good. Not as many turnover-worthy throws, big-time throws. But he needs time. He needs reps. Could he be the best quarterback in this class? No doubt about it. 5-6 years, we could be talking about how's Anthony Richardson not the 101 in this draft. But he's not there yet. And so if you take him, you have to know you're putting him on your bench, and you're probably waiting for a year, maybe even two. You know, there are a lot of people who were hoping he was going to get drafted to the New York Giants to be Brian Abel. Well, the Giants just won last night. So they're falling farther back into the first round here. And I don't necessarily know that they're going to have a high draft pick or if Anthony Richardson's going to fall that far. So for me, I feel like this is a good round. This is a good spot to get him in. I'm taking him here if you really want a quarterback with upside. Because again, you could get the best quarterback in the draft and you're getting him at 1-6. I'm okay with you going up as high as 1-2, 1-3, 1-4. For me, this was the perfect spot where I'm willing to take a shot on him. Then that follows up with Will Levis at 1-7. I don't know what to think about Will Levis. Again, this is his 2022 stats. He did have a much better 2021 season, but 60.4 QBR, more turnover worthy throws than big time throws, 13-7. Completion percentage was okay, 65%, ADOT 8.6. He's got the arm, guys. He could fire a ball through a garden hose, right? Like he can fit it into any tight window that you want. He can grip it and rip it with the best of them. But the consistency and the accuracy is not there. And in my opinion, the reason his 2021 season was so good is because they kept scheming up these plays to Wan'Dale Robinson and allowing Wan'Dale to do a ton of work. Do I think Will Levis can be a starter at the NFL level? Yes, I do. But much like Anthony Richardson, he's going to need time to develop and to get there. And so if you're taking him, you're betting on him being, if I'm being honest, on the side of the spectrum that we just haven't seen work out a lot. The reason the CJ Strouds and Bryce Youngs work out, quote unquote, and turn into like these QB2s is because they're already good quarterbacks coming into the NFL. And now some of those guys don't work out either. That's fair point to make. But more often than not, the quarterbacks who need a lot of developing heading into the NFL do not work out. Everybody points out to, hey, well, Will Levis can be Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a unicorn, folks. He is one of one. Will Levis is not Josh Allen, guys. He's just not. Stop putting him in that spectrum because he's not there. Could he turn out like a Will Levis, like a Lamar Jackson, who are a little bit of projects and ended up being incredible NFL quarterbacks? Yes. But that is a bet you have to make here because it's not guaranteed. And so for me, that's why I struggle taking an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis earlier in my rookie drafts. And I feel like this is the perfect spot to take him because you're right on the verge of the playoffs and maybe one of these wide receivers or running backs. I think if Bijan and Jameer are gone, then I'm perfectly fine taking these two quarterbacks here because I feel like those are the two that are really going to help you right off the bat. The next couple wide receivers we're going to get to, like, I don't know that any of these guys are going to be wide receiver ones or even high-end wide receiver twos. So I'm taking one of these quarterbacks that could really hit for you and then take a running back in the second round. But that does get us to 1.8. Kayshon Boutte for me. Maybe I'm a little bit stuck in my process here because Kayshon Boutte was my number one wide receiver coming out. And for me, not much change. I know he did not have a good season. I get that. The LSU team was just not good in general. All right. Like Jaden Daniels, not a good quarterback, at least in my opinion. You get Brian Kelly comes up to the team and he talks about he doesn't even remember the kid's name. He's like, hey, who? K what? Kayshon who? That's not great. Was supposed to be coming back to school, then rumors about all this other stuff. Now he's going into the NFL draft. Regardless, he broke out in major ways as a freshman, had an incredible year in that COVID season. In his sophomore season, he was good and on pace to break tons of records before the really bad foot injury, which we still don't know what it was. And that is why I'm giving him a little bit of grace in his junior season and not producing because I don't know how much that injury still bothered him. I also think, again, weird offense with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. I'm not going to blame him too much. I do think that Kayshon Boutte has a better argument than anybody else in this class to end up as the best wide receiver in this class. For me, I'm betting on the upside here at 1.8. I was a playoff team. I want a wide receiver that I think could definitely bring back returns. And I still think with his name value, if you don't see it, you'll be able to sell him for, even if it's not a first-round pick, maybe a couple seconds down the road. I mean, I was watching people trade Terrace Marshall for second-round picks. Boutte outproduced Terrace Marshall, folks. Kayshon Boutte, I think, is going to be a really good player. Puts us at 1.9. I'm taking the next best wide receiver, in my opinion, Jordan Addison, former Biletnikoff Award winner, transfers from Pitt to USC, has a good season, but again, struggles with injuries, much like a lot of these wide receivers on this list. A lot of these guys had some issue somewhere. But Addison, I think, is really good, really great separator, just finds ways to catch the ball. I've comped him to Devonta Smith a lot, and I think that's a great comparison to make. And when I say that in the fact of you're drafting this guy here, you're probably expecting him to be a wide receiver one for you in fantasy. I don't think that's where he's at. He's a wide receiver two. And I think that's a fair assessment to make of him. And that's exactly what I would expect him to be going into the NFL level. Again, the only one I think really has a shot together is Kayshon Boutte, maybe JSN. That's why I'm taking Jordan Addison here. Those another running backs I really want. No other quarterbacks that I'm thinking about. I'm just going best player available for me. That was Jordan Addison, which then puts me at 110. I'm taking the next best wide receiver off the board, Quentin Johnson out of TCU. Again, a little bit of a project. I know a lot of people are kind of hitting him for not showing up in the national championship game against Georgia. Look, he had one big play that Max Duggan underthrew him, and the pass was picked off. Like, Johnson had a chance to be really good. He got them to the national championship with his big plays against Michigan, and that's what he is. He's a big play threat. He really is. He, gets comped to DK Metcalf, Martavius Bryant. He's probably going to test close to those guys. I think it's fair to put him on that spectrum. If you want him to be DK Metcalf, what your hope is that whoever takes him is going to be much like Seattle and say, hey, we want you to do what you're good at, not what you're not good at. And while DK has definitely gotten better and developed a little bit over time, when he came out as that rookie in the NFL, they just asked him to run those non-routes, run these slants, what he was really good at in college, and they just excelled upon that. They just kept going, hey, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing, and they let him succeed in the NFL, and then they slowly added more and more on there. If Quentin Johnston can get that kind of treatment as a rookie, I think he could be very good, but he definitely needs a little bit of time to be developed. That puts me at 111. There's a lot of players I can go here, but my attitude, if I'm sitting here at the 111, just lost out on winning a fantasy championship, wide receivers and quarterbacks technically or really hold their value longer than running backs do, but running backs, in my opinion, are what most people try and build around somewhat, even though we see these guys get injured a lot and you're relying on guys that were like at the bottom of your roster sometimes in dynasty leagues. Regardless, I'm taking Zach Evans here. I know he's got a lot of, just look at his stats right there. They don't speak great. A lot of people talk about how he was outproduced by true freshman Quinshon Judkins. But if you go back and look at what he's able to do at TCU and even his times at Ole Miss, he was extremely productive and consistent. There's a lot of talk. He gets hit with this off-field stuff. Like, he missed curfew one time, guys. Like, don't tell me, anybody watching this video, you've never missed a curfew before. And his last season at TCU, a lot of the stuff that he didn't want to play at the end of the year, a lot of that I guarantee you was his loyalty to Gary Patterson, who got fired in mid-season. That was his guy. I don't blame him for not wanting to play for this new coach and everything and just wanting to go into the portal. He came to Ole Miss saying, hey, like, I'm preparing for the NFL. I don't want to be given the ball 300 times. And he wasn't. And he was still very productive with his touches. I think he's really smooth behind the line of scrimmage, really good feet. His vision is good. I don't think it's great. But overall, I think Zach Evans is going to surprise some people at the NFL level. So he'd be the running back I'd take here. That puts me at 112. Sitting here, just won a fantasy championship. There's 3 or 4 ways you can go here. But for me, I'm going for a guy that I think could be top 5 at his position in the NFL. It's tight end Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. And I know some people are going to say you don't take a tight end in the first round. Look at what these guys like Irv Smith and, I don't even know who else was getting taken in the first rounds. I know Irv Smith was. TJ Hawkinson, although he had a really good year finally with Minnesota. He's had a couple of good seasons, been up and down. Noah Fant, though, had a decent season with Seattle. You just don't take these tight ends in the first round. I do think Michael Mayer has a chance to buck that trend a little bit. He's not Kyle Pitts, but I think he's closer to Pat Freiermuth than people give him credit for. They probably won't test as good as Pat Freiermuth, but he is an all-around tight end like Freiermuth. He can block. He can catch. He can run routes. Let's throw that graphic back up there. 45% in the slot, not in line, helping block. 45% in the slot. He can run routes, folks. He is really, really good. Michael Mayer is the kind of tight end that I think actually could end up being like a top 5 guy within a year or so of being there. And I do think he can have a rookie season like Pat Freiermuth had, especially if he's drafted to the right offense. So he's a guy that I'm really watching here. Now, if he gets drafted to a really bad team, he probably falls down this mock a little bit, but I expect him to be a top 10 pick and probably be a focal point of any offense he goes to. Going into the second round here. So with my first pick, I took Bijan Robinson. All the quarterbacks are gone. So at this point, I don't really want to go double up running back. I want to try and get a wide receiver. I'm surprised he's still here, so I'm taking him, Josh Downs. Now, he is diminutive, guys. 82% in the slot as well. He's nothing but a slot wide receiver, but he's good. Really quick feet, really good hands. The only thing I don't like about him, I'm going to make the comp of he's very much like Deontay Johnson. The fact that I feel like he gets injured every game. They're like bringing the card out for him. They're taking him off the field and like, oh, that's his season. And then he's back out there like 2 plays later, and he's catching a touchdown. You're like, yeah, Josh Downs is back, baby. That's what you're going to get at the NFL level too. But I do think he's going to be highly productive for you. He just knows how to create separation, good speed, while he's going to be limited as a slot guy. And that's why I don't think he's going to go in the first round. And he's definitely going to be probably like a mid-day 2 pick in the NFL side of things. I think this is the right spot for him. So I do think he's going to be a pretty productive NFL player. So we move into the second round. For me specifically, I'm looking heavily at running backs now. I really want to, again, anchor those guys. To me, there's a massive drop off at wide receiver after Josh Downs. And so if I'm sitting there at 2-2, I'm like, I took CJ Stroud. Who else can I grab that's going to help me kind of rebuild my team? Really bad team last year. I got a quarterback who has a chance to be a top end, probably QB 8 to 15 area. Who else can I grab? Zach Charbonnet, running back out at UCLA. Rumors where he could have been a high-end second-round pick last year if he had come out. He goes back to school, just has another really good season. I mean, again, 2022 stats there, and you may look at that dominator rating and say, man, 60 as well. Still really, really good when you look at it, what his graph shows out to be, which we will do here at the end of the show. He is what I would call a runway runner, though. He's got to have a little bit of blocking set up for him, but once he gets going, he is gone. Little bit of hands there. We'll pull back up on the reception market share. Man, 12.71 for UCLA. That's 22nd in the league. So he can help you on the receiving side of things as well. Zach Charbonnet, I think, has got a shot. He's one of the other few guys left I think could be an actual workhorse, even though we know NFL teams don't do that anymore. They split this up between multiple running backs, but I could see him getting like the 65 to 70% workload in a backfield. And I expect him to be a day 2 pick. So that puts me at 2-3. Took Bryce Young, sitting here, same ideology, really. Want a running back that I think could be really good, Tank Bigsby. He is a guy I think is getting often forgot about, had an incredible rookie season, and then just had 2 kind of down years. But look, 18 reception market share, 4th among running backs in the 2022 season. 4th, guys. That's really good on a bad Auburn team, too. This was not a good team with multiple quarterbacks on this team as well that could not throw the ball. Tank Bigsby's going to be better than I think we're giving him credit for. Now, he's never going to be that 3-down workhorse back. He's probably going to be more of a second down grinder type, but I do think he's going to be really good. Does tend to push the ball outside a little bit too much. You'd like to see him go up the middle. Getting him in the second round here, I think he could be a steal for you. 2-4. We took JSN here, and we're like, okay, probably need to get that running back since we passed on running back in the first round. Sean Tucker. I don't know what to do with Sean Tucker. He is he's an athletically gifted kid. Extremely fast, sprinter. He's going to test really well. Tad bit undersized, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. He's good at everything. I just don't know that he's really great at anything. And so I do think Sean Tucker is going to be good at the NFL level, but he's just not a guy that I'm going to be betting on to ever be like a RB5-ish type. Can he break into the RB1 territory and get to like RB12, 10 through 12? Probably. Once or twice, probably. I do think he's got the receiving upside to do that. But overall, I just think he's a very good back, not great. But I do think it's a great spot to grab here with JSN after you took one of the top wide receivers in the class. Next up, we took Anthony Richardson here. And so I'm thinking, okay, what do I want to do? Anthony Richardson. Taking a wide receiver. Rashee Rice. I am not as sold on Rashee Rice as some others are. I think he's probably like a round 3 pick, round 4. He's a senior, had a really good season this year. He can dominate deep. I do think he can be a decent contested catch guy as well. Like, I do think he's a good wide receiver. A lot of people are projecting him in the first round. Early second. If he gets that draft capital, I don't see how you can't take him here because we've seen that those guys just continue to get opportunities, whether they're good or not. And I do think Rashee Rice is a good wide receiver. I just wouldn't put him in the first-round draft capital range. I just don't think that's a good spot for him. But if he does get drafted there, we're taking him here and building out our young team. Next up, took Will Levis, looking for a running back or wide receiver. In my opinion, the next best available player is running back, so I'm taking Kendre Miller, TCU running back. Now, as of the time of the recording of this video, is not technically declared yet, but I do expect him to come out. He's just really good at everything, like good vision, good burst, good hands, like reception market share is 140. He's caught some pretty good balls for TCU this year. even though he wasn't necessarily asked to do it a lot, I do think he can do it. Not necessarily a ton of long speed. He can break some big plays, but he has gotten caught from behind a few times. Kendre Miller is very much like Sean Tucker, in my opinion. He's not going to test as well athletically, but I think he's just really good. Like, he doesn't have that elite trait to hang your hat on, but I think he's really good at everything, which I do think means he will probably be really good in the NFL. But he's not a guy that I think you're ever going to anchor your team around. He's probably like a middle to low end RB2. Again, same with Sean Tucker. Can he get there to RB12 one year? Probably, if he gets the touchdowns. But overall, I just think he's a really good running back. He's a guy that you're probably going to be able to win some championships with because he's going to be a decent RB2 for you. So I'm taking him here because I'm a little bit afraid to bet on the upside, but I'm not afraid to bet on the upside here. So 1-7 we took Will Levis. So at this point, I'm betting all upside. Devin Achane. He's going to test off the charts, folks. He really is. This kid literally is an Olympic sprinter. He has run and I believe tested possible. I don't know that he could actually go to the Olympics, but he might be able to. And a lot of people are saying, well, now that that's over with, football season's over with, we're getting ready for the combine, he's probably going to put on some weight. We'll need to see if he can run as fast with that weight on there. But reception market share, 7th in college. Dominator rating, 7th in college. 51 missed forced tackles. He's not going to make you miss much. He's listed, though, at 5'9", 185. That is light. All right. But he doesn't have an issue running up the middle, which is kind of the knock everybody gets him. But he does. He actually does it quite a lot. He can get outside as well. If he hits, and I get it, 5'9", 185 is not inspiring a whole lot of confidence, but that speed factor. If he goes to the right team, they draft him for the right reasons, and they have a plan for him, the way I would put it is I think he could be a 10 times more explosive Nyheim Hines in the right system. For all of you who rostered Jonathan Taylor for the past years, like myself, you know how frustrating that was when Frank Reich kept running Nyheim Hines out there. Devin Achane can end up in a system like that, or Tony Pollard with Zeke Elliott. I think he's much better than Tony Pollard as well. If he can end up in a system like that, he can be very, very good for you, but he's got to get the reps. If he can get 10 touches a game, 15 touches a game at most, I think he's going to be perfectly fine for you. Betting on the upside here, I do think he's going to get day 2 draft capital. And so with that size, day 2 draft capital, it's going to scare some people. He may fall down further than this. I'd be willing to take the upside bet here on him now. All right, so that puts us at 2-8. At 1-8 in the first round, we took Kayshon Boutte. Don't want to necessarily double up on wide receivers. A couple I'd be willing to take here, but again, me, I want to balance it out a little bit. Want to try and get a running back. I'm going to go Israel Abanikanda out of Pitt. Really good season, and a guy that honestly came out of nowhere because he was not the starter to begin the season. His starter goes down. Name jumped out of my head here. Cannot for the life of me remember who it is. Doesn't matter. Jumps out. He gets injured the first game. Abanikanda comes out and then just runs through. Incredible season. Look at that. 14th in rush yards, 14th in dominator rating. Now, he's not much of a pass catcher, but that's okay. We don't need him to be that. He is on the level of athleticism of a Nick Chubb. Some people may make that comp. I don't think he's quite there, but I do think he can bring you really good production on the ground. Again, at this point, you're probably not getting a workhorse back. But if he's a guy who's in a committee backfield, he's getting, even if it's 40%, but he's getting you those tough yards, if he's getting in the red zone work to try and score you some touchdowns, he's likely going to come through for you. So I'm taking Abanikanda here at 1-9. So at 1-9, we went wide receiver, right? We took Jordan Addison. There's not really any running backs here. Maybe if Hendon Hooker or one of these other quarterbacks gets drafted in the second round, Jaren Hall, you take him here. But I don't think those guys will. So at this point, I'm just doubling up wide receiver. I'm going Jalen Hyatt. I don't necessarily love Jalen Hyatt from an NFL perspective. You can look at his stats right here. I mean, A.dot 13.6, 106 in the nation. Receiving market share, 23.10, 75th in the nation. Now, his dominator rating was incredible. A lot of that, though, had to do with the fact that he scored as many touchdowns as he did. He's a big slot, folks. I don't love that for an NFL perspective. I just don't. He had the big plays. A lot of them came in broken coverages, and you still have to give him credit for that because he helped break them, and he still did something with it. But he's listed at 6'2", 165, guys. And I know he is going to test really well. He's probably going to run really fast. I just have some questions about him. But everything's pointing to him being a first round, second round pick. And you can get a first round pick this late in the draft again. I think you've got to take it. If he doesn't work out as a rookie and you want to trade him, you're probably still getting a first round pick for him. So make the move. Next up, we took Quentin Johnston. Again, doubling up with wide receiver here, and I'm taking Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt's teammate. I think Tillman's going to be more ready, and I think he's just the overall better wide receiver. Now, he's injured this year, missed a lot of time, so the stats don't tell you much, but I do think he could be a much better wide receiver. I actually think he's going to the Senior Bowl, so we'll have to watch out for him. Senior Bowl weeks, I really think he could shoot his draft capital up. Cedric Tillman, though, really good route runner, really good hands. I think he's going to surprise some people at the NFL level. I'll be willing to take him here 210. 211, I don't know what to do. Took a running back in Zach Evans. It's like, do I go upside? Do I take another running back? Where am I going? Torn between taking a Chase Brown right here, another running back, but because I took Zach Evans earlier, I want to go wide receiver, taking Raheem Jarrett out of Maryland. I know, right? Raheem Jarrett, who has been at best okay for 3 years in college football. But this kid was incredible in high school, has the recruiting pedigree, and it was, whether you think so or not, the NFL cares about that. They really do. I mean, look at those stats, though, this year. It's not great. But, and a very much a slot wide receiver, at least this past year. Guys, he's got some speed and playmaking ability and incredible hands. He is a guy that I think will be able to go up and get the ball in tough situations over the middle. He's not afraid to make those catches. I think he's going to get day 2 draft capital. And if he does, I think it's the perfect spot to grab him. Is he ever going to be a guy that's going to get you wide receiver 1 numbers? Probably not. He is going to be at best at wide receiver 2, probably a high-end wide receiver 3, but you have to start those guys. And I do think, especially in best ball terms, this kid could be a guy who wins you some boom weeks. He could put you up 20-plus points, 30 points, because he has, 6 catches for 140 and 2 touchdowns or something like that. Those games are in his repertoire as a slot wide receiver with the speed and burst he has down the field. So that puts me at the last pick for this mock. So we're only going to do 2 rounds. Took Michael Mayer, taking Kenny McIntosh, mostly because we've seen these Georgia running backs just get these draft capital and play in the NFL. And look at James Cook this past year. A lot of people say he got drafted on his last name value, being Dalvin Cook's little brother. Well, guys, Kenny McIntosh, 2 decent years at Georgia here, the last 2 years, back-to-back national championship winner. If I'm being honest, I think he's better than James Cook. James Cook got second-round draft capital. I don't know if McIntosh is going to get that. He's a really good receiver, pretty good rusher. I think he's going to be pretty good in the NFL as well. All right, so that wraps up the mock. Let's take a recap really quick of, actually, we're going to show off the graphs first, then we'll recap the mock. So if you're looking at this, here is the experience-adjusted weighted dominator rating for this class. That's everybody that was drafted in this mock, and you can see. If you're above that line, that's escalating up through the years at all, that means that you broke over the average of a wide receiver who has been a top 24 season in the NFL. So, if you're looking at year 1, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, Kayshon Boutte, and Raheem Jarrett all did it. Josh Downs, Jordan Addison, JSN, Quentin Johnson all did it in year 2. Rashee Rice just almost there. Jalen Hyatt was the only one to do it in year 3. But again, Johnston, Downs, Addison, and Boutte and JSN and Tillman all injured. They all missed that over the 30 year. You'd love to see wide receivers go over that all 3 years. They were able to do it for all of those. This is just their experience, reception, market share here, just to kind of show that as well. A couple of the graphics we had on there just to give you guys an idea. Again, all these graphs are found at campus2canton.com. Moving on to the running backs, the dominator rating. You can see Sean Tucker 2 years straight as a freshman and as a sophomore dominated. And then Devin Achane and Bijan Robinson in this one. Look at Bijan too. I mean, he's up there with some of the best in this class in his sophomore and junior year, and even broke it as a freshman. He is by far the best running back in this class. Here is their reception market share. Again, if you're looking for running backs who do bring that kind of receiving part to their game. Last but not least, just want to show you guys the quarterbacks. Here is the adjusted QBR. It is one of both of these stats are the most predictive. It is very hard to predict NFL success from college quarterbacks, but these are the 2 most predictive, and that is QBR and EPA per play. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, the only 2 to ever cross the line. And then again here on EPA per play as well. Here is, again, a recap of how round 1 and 2 went. I will read them again. Bijan, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, Zach Evans, and Michael Mayer wrap up the first round. In the second round, Josh Downs, Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, Sean Tucker, Rashee Rice, Kendre Miller, Devin Achane, Israel Abanikanda, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Raheem Jarrett, and then Kenny McIntosh. Guys, that'll do it for this mock. We will be back again next Monday. We will be dropping a Mock Draft Monday episode every single week. If you guys like what we're doing here, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our content, and give some thoughts to checking out the website, campus2canton.com. Not only do we do everything college, but we can definitely help you in your rookie drafts as well. Everybody have yourselves a great day, and we'll talk to you guys.